The Nigerian Senate have succumbed to mounting pressures from Nigeria and the opposition parties. The Senate amendment to the Electoral Act now allows presiding officers at the polling units to transmit election results electronically to INEC's IREF portal, which on the surface align with demands for transparency and credibility in the coming elections. Electronic transmission is widely seen. Where electronic transmission fails due to network challenges, the manual result sheet becomes the authoritative record. This is where the controversy lies. In practical terms, this provision reopens the very loophole electronic transmission was meant to close: network failure. It is a vague and easily contestable excuse in a country where connectivity varies widely and can be deliberately sabotaged or simply claimed. Once manual result sheets are adopted, the process returns to physical movement of results through collation centers, a stage historically associated with alterations, intimidation, and discrepancies between polling unit results and final tallies. Let's take a listen at how Akpabio, the Senate President, describes the situation.
Let me read the motion. His earlier motion, which passed in our last sitting, he has sought to rescind that, that is in respect of section 60 subsection 3. And this is what is: that the presiding officer shall electronically transmit the results from each polling unit to the IREF portal, and such transmission shall be done after the prescribed form EC8A has been signed and stamped by the presiding officer and or countersigned by the candidates or polling agents where available at the polling units, because sometimes you don't see any polling agent. Provided that if the electronic transmission of the result fails, if it fails as a result of communication failure, in other words, maybe network or otherwise, and it becomes impossible to transmit the result electronically in form EC8A, signed and stamped by the presiding officer and or countersigned candidates or polling agents where available at the polling units, the form EC8A shall in such a case be the primary source of collation and declaration of results. So distinguished colleagues, if anybody has a counter motion, you move it later. But in the meantime, those in support of the motion as enunciated by Senator Mongunu and seconded by Senator Bamoro, say aye. And those again say nay. The ayes have it.
Opposition party leaders such as Peter Obi, Rotimi Amechi, and activists like Omoleye Sowore have intensified pressure on the Nigerian Senate, insisting on the mandatory electronic transmission of results as a non-negotiable reform for credible elections in 2027. Their argument is rooted in recent history and public distrust of the electoral process, especially following the controversies of the 2023 general elections. They contend that electronic transmission directly from the polling unit to a central viewing portal will significantly reduce manipulation at collation centers, while results are often altered during manual movement and aggregation. According to them, once results are uploaded immediately after voting, the opportunity for interference by political actors, security operatives, or compromised official is drastically reduced. This, they argue, is the single most effective way to protect the sanctity of the voter's choice. Peter Obi has repeatedly framed this demand as a democratic safeguard rather than a partisan agenda. Drawing from his 2023 experience, he points out that the results were uploaded successfully in many parts of the country for other elections, undermining claims that poor network coverage makes e-transmission impractical. Amechi, coming from within the political establishment, reinforces this by arguing that Nigeria already has the technological capacity and that resistance is largely driven by those who benefit from opacity in the system. Showore, from a more activist standpoint, has been blunt, describing opposition to electronic transmission as a deliberate attempt to preserve electoral fraud. Collectively, they are pushing the Senate to amend electoral provisions in a way that removes ambiguity and discretion, making electronic transmission compulsory rather than optional. In their view, anything short of this leaves room for manipulation and weakens public confidence. The pressure campaign is also very strategic. By forcing a clear legislative position now, they aim to prevent last-minute excuses or policy reversals ahead of future elections. For them, electronic transmission is not just about technology, it is about restoring legitimacy, accountability, and faith in Nigeria's democracy. So Nigerians must consistently maintain the momentum and demand accountability from their leaders. Democracy does not end at the ballot box, it only begins there. When citizens relax after elections, leaders often grow unchecked, power becomes arrogant, and public trust erodes. Sustained civic pressure through peaceful protests like this, media engagement, community organizing, and legal action is what keeps those in authority mindful that power truly belongs to the people. Accountability is not an act of opposition, it is a civic duty. Leaders who manage public resources must be questioned, policies must be scrutinized, and promises must be tracked against performance. Silence enables corruptions, and while consistent public engagement strengthens institutions, history shows that meaningful reforms in Nigeria have occurred when citizens remain vocal, united, and persistent like this. So Nigerians must consistently call out their leaders and policies that does not sit well or serve their best interests at heart.
That day, Senator Babi will be in his mansion with police, with army protecting him, while people like us will be on the field. And they are rigging the election. But you know one funny thing? If you think they won't rig, you're wasting time. To stop them from rigging, we must come out in large numbers.
You see them, you see these people over the weekend responding to this peaceful protest?
I don't know. And if it's their Bible, I know. If it's the one I know, because we are governors at the same time, he doesn't think it matter. The problem is not even a Bible. Even the president doesn't think the citizens matter. The only time the president began to react to insecurity was when Americans.
Exactly. Americans involved.
The day the Americans said, "Oh, they are killing Christians," that's when the president felt his office is threatened. He doesn't care about Nigerians.
One would be tempted to ask them, for what is this protest if they are not
Okay, this is to make the mark that Nigerians must come out. You're right.